A wall of mirrors killed me in my first life, so naturally the first thing my second life gave me was a mirror small enough to hide behind a sandwich. 30 seconds later, a teacher broke it with a stone and announced to 300 candidates that I had the worst talent he had seen all year. The laughter came before the last shard stopped spinning on the marble floor. I stood in the center of the Royal Academy examination court with my empty hand still raised. Around me, candidates held glowing swords, crystal staffs, spirit beasts, and shields large enough to stop a cart. I had been given a palm-sized mirror with a thin silver rim. Boren, the examiner, looked at the broken pieces near his boot. Physical endurance, 0. Combat value, negligible. Scholarship recommendation, denied. Final grade, F. A clerk beside him struck my name from the scholarship slate. My place on the public ranking board dropped from 187 to 298. 300 candidates saw it happen. That part mattered. In my old life, I had learned that embarrassment faded faster when you stopped feeding it. Also, I had died under several tons of glass. After that, a crowd laughing at me felt almost relaxing. I crouched and picked up the largest shard. Boren frowned. Leave the trash. I paid the examination fee. That does not make the trash valuable. No, I said. It makes it mine. A few people laughed again. This time, one girl near the back did not. Her name was Elia. I only learned that later. At that moment she was simply the candidate holding a short spear and watching me collect broken glass as if I were doing something reasonable. Caden, a broad boy with red hair and a fire crest on his uniform, stepped closer. Careful, F-Rank. Maybe the mirror will defeat you a second time. The crowd liked that one. I put the last useful shard into my pocket. I hope not, I said. I only have one uniform. Caden stared at me, trying to decide if I had insulted him. He looked like a furnace that had learned to walk but not to think quickly. Boren waved me away. The examination continued without me. By sunset, my new life had become very simple. I had 12 silver coins, no scholarship, a bed in the cheapest dormitory, and a ranking low enough that even the notice board looked embarrassed to display it. The room was narrow. The mattress was thin. The window did not close properly. I had one chair, one chipped bowl, and a desk that leaned to the left like it was tired of education. I placed the broken mirror shard on that desk, then the system spoke. There was no glowing window, no floating table, no polite explanation. A calm voice simply sounded inside my head and told me that the examination had awakened a compatible path. 3 future class routes were named to me: Reflection Catcher, Mirror Knight, and Lord of Copies. Only the first route was available. The condition was strange enough that I sat down. A mirror could store the magical imprint of a spell only if the spell was fully reflected by its surface. One mirror could hold one imprint. My current capacity was 4 units of mana. A stored imprint could be released once. After release, the mirror became empty again. That was all. No bonus strength, no free spells, no stronger body, no secret sword hidden under the bed. I looked at the cracked shard. Physical endurance, terrible. Magical reflection, unknown. Boren had tested a mirror by throwing a rock at it. It was like judging a boat by dropping it from a tower. I needed a spell worth 4 units of mana. I did not know any magic. That was the first problem. The second problem was that my dinner cost 2 copper coins, and I had to choose between eating well and testing the only useful thing in my life. I chose dinner first. A genius who starved on the first night would be a very short legend. The dormitory kitchen sold a bowl of noodles for 1 copper coin. I paid 1 more for an egg. The cook poured hot broth over thick noodles, added sliced green onion, a spoon of dark sauce, and a piece of roasted pork so thin I could almost see the bowl through it. It was still the best thing I had eaten since dying. I carried the bowl to a corner table. Elia sat across from me without asking. She had changed out of the examination armor. Her dark hair was tied back, and a small bandage covered one knuckle. "You really collected the shards," she said. "Yes." "Why?" "New mirrors cost money." She looked at my noodles, then at me. "That answer is somehow worse than I expected." "You asked." Her mouth moved slightly, not quite a smile. She placed a copper coin on the table. For the pork. I already bought pork. That thing is a rumor of pork. The cook heard her and shouted from the counter that rumors were expensive this year. For the first time since waking in this world, I laughed. Elia had scored B on the entrance exam. She had no reason to sit with the boy ranked 298. That told me more about her than any polite introduction could. I did not tell her about the system. I did ask one question. How much mana is in the weakest light spell? 1 unit, maybe 2. Can you cast it at a mirror? Her spoon stopped. You want me to attack your trash? Yes. That is the first interesting thing you have said. We finished eating and went behind the dormitory where no one cared what F-rank students did after dark. I held the largest shard against a brick wall. Elia stood 5 steps away. Her spell was called Spark. It was not an attack. It was the magical version of snapping your fingers near dry wood. She used 1 unit of mana and sent a white point of light toward the glass. The spark touched the surface. The mirror flashed. The light bounced back and vanished against the wall. At the same moment, the system told me that 1 magical imprint had been stored. 1 unit. Capacity remaining, 3. I stared at the shard. Nothing looked different. Again, I said. Elia cast a second spark. The light reflected. The system told me the mirror was already occupied. The second spell left no imprint. 1 mirror, 1 attack. That part was literal. I turned the shard toward an empty barrel. The system responded when I willed the stored imprint outward. A white spark jumped from the mirror and struck the barrel. The wood smoked. Elia stopped breathing for a second. Then she walked over, took the shard from my hand, looked behind it, looked under it, and finally looked at me. You cast that? No. I watched it come out of your hand. It came out of the mirror. That distinction sounds important to you. It is the only important thing. I told her the rule, but not the class names. A spell had to reflect completely. The mirror stored 1 imprint. The current limit was 4 units of mana. 1 release, then empty. Elia understood faster than I did. You do not need to know the spell. No. You do not spend the mana. No. You need someone else to spend it first. Yes? She smiled then. It was not a soft smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a knife inside a loaf of bread. Boren gave that an F. He threw a rock at it. That made her laugh hard enough to sit on the barrel I had scorched. The next morning, my ranking became a problem before breakfast. The Royal Academy used public challenge matches to adjust student placement. Anyone within 50 positions could request a supervised duel, refusing cost points, winning earned points and a small training allowance. Because I was ranked 298, almost everyone in the bottom quarter could challenge me. Caden did it before I reached the dining hall. He stood beside the notice board with 6 friends and a training supervisor. My name was written under his. Caden, ranked 264. Riven, ranked 298. Challenge reward, 20 silver coins. The crowd around the board was already growing. Caden folded his arms. I thought you might need the money. I do. He blinked. People expected anger when they tried to humiliate you. Agreement ruined the rhythm. The duel was scheduled for noon in the West Practice Court. By 11, more than 100 students had gathered. Someone had told the story of the broken mirror. Someone else had improved it by claiming I had cried. A third version said I had tried to glue the mirror together with soup. Rumors moved faster than fire magic. Elia found me near the equipment shed. You only have 1 shard. Yes. And Caden uses fire. Yes. His basic fireball costs 4 units of mana. That made me look at her. Exactly 4? Exactly 4. I smiled. She sighed. I preferred you when you looked harmless. I had spent 6 silver coins that morning. 2 coins bought a plain hand mirror from a street stall. 1 coin bought leather straps. 3 coins bought a thin metal plate from the academy smithy. I fixed the mirror to the plate and strapped it to my left forearm. It looked terrible. Caden laughed when I entered the ring. The students behind him laughed too. Boren was not supervising, but he had come to watch. That was useful. Witnesses made victory heavier. The training supervisor explained the rules. No lethal attacks, no strikes after surrender. Barrier healers would intervene if necessary. Caden raised one hand. Flame gathered above his palm. He wanted to end it immediately. That was also useful. "Still time to surrender," he said. I raised my mirror. "Throw the rock first." The crowd made a strange sound, half laughter, half confusion. Boren's face tightened. Caden's did too. Then the fireball came. 4 units of mana, a sphere of orange flame crossed the ring. I did not block it like a shield. That would have shattered the mirror. I angled the surface. The fireball hit the glass. For 1 second, the entire mirror turned orange. Heat washed over my hand. The spell reflected upward, passed over my shoulder, and exploded against the barrier behind me. The crowd stopped laughing. The system told me the magical imprint had been stored. 4 units. Maximum capacity reached. Caden stared. "What?" I understood the next part only because of the spark test. The reflected spell was gone from the battlefield, but its shape remained inside the mirror. Caden lifted his hand again. He had spent 4 units. I had spent none. He created another fireball. I moved first. I pointed the mirror at the ground in front of him and released the stored imprint. The same fireball erupted from the glass. Caden had enough time to widen his eyes. Then his own spell hit the floor under his feet. The barrier protected him from lethal damage. It did not protect his dignity. The explosion threw him backward into a water trough beside the practice ring. He landed sitting down. Steam rose around him. One of his boots floated away. For 2 full seconds, nobody spoke. Then the West Court exploded with noise. Students shouted. Someone screamed that the F rank had returned Caden's fire. Someone else yelled that the boot had surrendered first. Even the supervisor turned his face away to hide a smile. Caden climbed out of the trough, wet, red, and shaking. That was my spell. "Yes. You copied it. Once. You cheated." The supervisor stepped between us. No prohibited item was detected. No outside caster intervened. The duel result stands. He raised my hand. The public ranking board changed before the crowd dispersed. My position rose from 298 to 271. The Academy paid me 20 silver coins. Caden lost 9 ranking points and 1 boot. My mirror survived, but a hairline crack had appeared near the rim. That was the price. 1 4-unit attack had damaged a mirror worth 2 silver coins. I wrote the numbers down that afternoon. 20 silver earned, 6 silver spent on equipment, 2 silver of mirror value partly damaged. Net gain, 12 silver and 1 reusable metal plate. More important, I had proof. 100 students had seen it. By dinner, the story had crossed the entire first-year dormitory. The boy with the broken mirror had beaten a fire mage with his own fireball. By evening, the story had reached the second years. By night, someone had drawn Caden sitting in the trough on the notice board. The drawing included the floating boot. Elia found me studying it. "You are smiling. I am studying academy culture. That is a very serious boot." We ate in the dormitory kitchen again. This time I bought 2 bowls of noodles, 2 eggs, thick slices of roasted pork, fried mushrooms, and small sesame cakes still hot from the pan. The total cost was 5 copper coins. I paid for both meals. Elia did not argue. She broke 1 sesame cake in half and dipped it into the broth. "You can afford meat now. For 3 days. You just earned 20 silver. I need mirrors." "How many?" "As many as 20 silver can buy without making me homeless." She looked almost offended on behalf of food. After dinner, we returned to my room. I placed the cracked examination shard beside the new hand mirror. The hand mirror was empty after the duel. The examination shard should also have been empty. It had only reflected Aaliyah's 1-unit spark the night before, and I had released that spark into the barrel. But something had changed. The glass was dark, not black, deep. I lifted it toward the lamp. There was a corridor inside, a stone corridor with broken windows. Dust covered the floor. A blue Academy banner hung from the ceiling, torn through the center. I knew the Royal Academy well enough after 1 day to recognize that banner. Aaliyah leaned over my shoulder. "That corridor is not in this dormitory." "No." A shadow moved at the far end of the reflected hallway. We both froze. A person stepped into view. The figure wore an academy uniform covered in ash. Then the cracked shard went clear again. The broken corridor did not return that night. I tried holding the shard near the lamp. I turned it toward the window. I placed it beside the new mirror. I even asked Aaliyah to cast spark at it again. Nothing happened. The shard reflected my tired face and one very worried girl standing behind me. Maybe it was a stored image, Aaliyah said. Of a place neither of us has seen? That is why I said maybe. I wrapped the shard in cloth and put it under my mattress. Then I slept for 4 hours. The second day began with money, more accurately, with the lack of it. 20 silver coins sounded impressive until I learned the price of good mirrors. The Academy supply shop sold polished combat mirrors for 12 silver each. Reinforced ones cost 28. A silver-backed training mirror cost 40. I had 14 silver left after yesterday's purchases in food, so I went into the lower market before morning classes. Aaliyah came with me because, according to her, someone had to stop me from buying glass that would explode in my face. I survived a falling mirror wall, I said. That is not evidence in your favor. The lower market smelled of bread, hot iron, lamp oil, and rain on stone. Students crowded the stalls before class. Merchants shouted prices from under striped awnings. We found a narrow shop with mirrors hanging from every wall. The owner was Tovan. He was a thin man with large hands and a scar across one eyebrow. He looked at my academy coat, then at the cheap mirror strapped to my arm. I saw the duel. That makes this easier. It makes it more expensive. Elia leaned toward me. I like him. Tovan placed 3 small square mirrors on the counter. These are rejected cosmetic plates. The silver backing is uneven. The edges chip. 1 silver coin each. How much magic can they reflect? He stared at me. I sell mirrors. I do not argue with lightning. I bought 6. Then I spent 2 more silver on leather cord, waxed cloth, and a small wooden case. 8 silver gone. 6 mirrors gained. I had 6 silver left. That was when the academy bell rang and reminded me that I was technically a student. By the time we returned, my name was surrounded by chalk marks on the ranking board. 3 challenge requests, 1 from Caden, which the supervisor had already denied because rematches required 3 days. 2 from students I did not know. And 1 special notice from the first-year combat office. Rank recovery trial. Winner reward, 50 silver coins. Placement increase, up to 40 positions. I read the notice twice. Aaliyah read the line below it. Opponent assigned by the academy. That sounds friendly. It sounds like Boren. She was right. Boren waited outside the combat office. He held yesterday's report in one hand. You caused a disturbance. I won a legal duel. You exploited an untested item interaction. My mirror. Your mirror was graded F. By a rock. 2 passing students slowed down. Boren noticed them. His jaw tightened. The academy allows students to appeal an initial ranking through a recovery trial. Since you appear dissatisfied, I submitted your name. I did not appeal. You are free to refuse. I looked at the reward again. 50 silver, 40 positions. Refusing cost 10 ranking points. He had built the choice carefully. If I lost, yesterday became a lucky accident. If I refused, I fell again. If I won, he could still claim the academy had fairly retested me. Boren was not stupid. He was protecting his own examination record. That made him more dangerous than Caden. When? I asked. For this afternoon. Public? Recovery trials always are. Good. He frowned. I walked away. Aaliyah caught up with me. You keep saying things that make angry people angrier. I asked if there would be witnesses. That was the part that made him angry. The opponent's name appeared at noon. Naira. Rank 229. Wind specialist. I had seen her at the entrance exam. She was not one of Caden's friends. She had scored B and cut 6 hanging targets with compressed air. That was a problem. Fireball was compact. Wind blades were fast and thin. A palm-sized mirror could reflect one if I caught the angle perfectly. It could not protect my ribs from the other 5. I found Naira outside the library. She had short blonde hair and a training sword at her hip. "You requested me?" she asked. "No, neither did I." That confirmed it. "Boren?" He said the combat office wanted a reliable test. "Do you want to withdraw?" Nira shook her head. 50 silver is 50 silver. I respected that answer. So we fight. So we fight. No insults, no fake hatred, no reason to pretend every opponent had been raised by wolves. That made the coming problem cleaner. I needed to beat someone competent who knew exactly what my mirror did. Classes passed slowly. At lunch, I ate rice with grilled chicken, cabbage, and a pepper sauce strong enough to make my eyes water. Aaliyah stole one piece of chicken while pretending to explain wind magic. I moved the plate away from her. That was tactical theft. You need to focus. I am focused on my chicken. She drew 6 lines on the table with her finger. Naira can launch 6 wind cuts. Each costs 2 units of mana. Total 12. Yes. My mirror capacity is 4. Yes. 1 mirror can store 1 attack. Yes. I looked at the wooden case beside my chair. 6 cheap mirrors. Aaliyah followed my eyes. Then she understood. Oh. The first hidden consequence was obvious only after I had money. My limit was not 1 stored spell. My limit was 1 stored spell per mirror. The system had never said I could only use 1 mirror. I tested it behind the library. Elia cast Spark into the first square mirror. 1 unit stored. Then she cast Spark into the second. 1 unit stored there too. 2 mirrors, 2 imprints. She cast into all 6. 6 separate sparks waited inside 6 pieces of cheap glass. I released them one after another into a tree stump. White flashes struck the wood 6 times. The system treated each mirror independently. My strength had just multiplied by the number of mirrors I could afford. My 6 silver coins suddenly felt very small. At 4, almost 200 students filled the recovery court. Yesterday's story had done the advertising for us. Caden stood near the front with his replacement boot. Boren sat beside 2 instructors. The ranking board had been moved close enough for everyone to see the result change immediately. Nira entered with no expression. I carried my wooden case. The whispers started when I opened it. 6 mirrors. Caden laughed loud enough for the first rows to hear. He brought a bathroom. Someone behind him asked if he had learned that joke while drying his socks. The crowd laughed at Caden instead. He stopped smiling. Public reputation had its own momentum. Yesterday, I had been the joke. Today, the crowd wanted to know if the joke could win again. The supervisor raised his hand. Nira moved before it fully dropped. 3 wind cuts crossed the ring. Fast. Too fast for a normal person to track comfortably. I had prepared for that. I did not hold 1 mirror. I had tied 3 to a light wooden frame the size of my chest. It looked like a crooked window. The first wind cut struck the left plate. The glass flashed pale green. The spell reflected upward. The mirror stored 2 units. The second hit the center plate. 2 more units stored. The third missed the frame and cut my sleeve. The barrier marked the hit. The crowd shouted. Naira did not pause. 3 more wind cuts came. I dropped the frame. That surprised everyone. I rolled right. 2 blades crossed over me. The third struck the frame lying on the ground. A mirror flashed. 3 stored attacks. 6 units of enemy mana held across 3 separate pieces of glass. I had spent none. Naira had spent 12. She saw the problem at the same time I did. Her expression changed. She stopped throwing narrow attacks. Wind gathered around her sword. A broad crescent formed along the blade. Aaliyah had warned me about that spell. Gale Sweep. 6 units of mana. Too much for 1 mirror. Too wide for the frame. Naira swung. The air itself seemed to bend. I grabbed 2 loaded mirrors from the frame and threw them. Not at Naira, at the ground to her left and right. The crowd made a disappointed sound. They thought I had missed. I released both stored wind cuts. The first struck the stone beside Naira's left foot. The second struck beside her right. She jumped backward exactly where I wanted. Her gale sweep changed angle during the movement. Instead of crossing the full ring, the broad spell hit the third loose mirror I had already placed against the barrier post. The glass shattered. It could not store 6 units, but it reflected part of the spell before breaking. That part mattered. The reflected wind slammed into the barrier and burst sideways. Nira's own coat snapped around her face. For half a second she could not see. I released the third stored wind cut. It struck her sword hand. The barrier flashed red. Disarm point. Her weapon spun away and landed outside the ring. The supervisor raised both hands. Match over. The court erupted. Nira stared at her empty hand. Then she looked at the broken mirror near the post. You used my attack to move me. Yes. And my other attack to blind me. Yes. And the third to disarm me. Yes. She exhaled. That is irritating. I know. Then she held out her hand. I shook it. That simple gesture changed the crowd more than another insult would have. Nira had fought seriously. She had lost seriously. Nobody could call it a staged victory. The ranking board changed. My position rose from 271 to 237, not the full 40 places. The Academy formula adjusted for the hit on my sleeve. Still, 34 places in one match. The combat office paid me 50 silver coins. I had lost one mirror worth 1 silver. 2 others had fresh chips. My equipment cost for the fight was 3 silver at most. Net gain, 47 silver. Strength gained, 6 independent storage slots proven. Status gained, 34 positions and a second public victory. By sunset, students had started calling my wooden frame the window shield. It was a terrible name. The name spread anyway. Boren did not leave his seat. When the crowd thinned, he called me over. You reflected a spell beyond your stated capacity. No. I saw a 6-unit gale sweep hit your mirror. It shattered. Part of it reflected. And stored nothing. His eyes narrowed. That distinction mattered legally. My ability had not broken its limit. The mirror had simply done what mirrors did before dying. Boren looked toward the students still standing nearby. He lowered his voice. The Academy will test this properly tomorrow. You already tested it twice. Tomorrow, I will supervise personally. There it was, the next step on the ladder, not a challenge from a student. An official examination designed by the man whose reputation was now attached to my failure. What is the reward? I asked. His mouth tightened. If your original F grade is overturned, your entrance scholarship is restored retroactively. How much? 120 silver for the first month plus housing credit. Now I was interested. And if I fail? Your current ranking returns to your entrance placement. 298. He was asking me to risk 61 places for 120 silver and proof that his first judgment had been wrong. I looked at the remaining students, at Caden, at Nira, at Elia near the barrier. Public? I asked. Boren's eye twitched. Yes. Then I accept. That evening I returned to Tovin's shop with 53 silver coins in my purse. He looked at the chips in my mirrors and clicked his tongue. You are murdering my merchandise. It died employed. That is what cheap employers say. I bought 12 more rejected plates for 12 silver. Then I asked about stronger glass. Tovan brought out a round mirror with a thick silver backing and a reinforced bronze rim. 8 silver. How much magic? I still sell mirrors. Elia says 6 units might be safe. Tovan looked at her. Elia should open her own shop. She would steal the chicken. I heard that, Elia said. I bought 2 reinforced mirrors for 16 silver. Then Tovan surprised me. He handed me a bag containing 4 chipped plates. Free. I looked at him. Why? Students came in all day asking for mirrors. You made trash fashionable. Elia covered her mouth. Tovan pointed at me. If you keep winning, I raise prices. My reputation had just affected the market. That was new. After purchases, I had 25 silver left, 18 cheap mirrors, 2 reinforced mirrors, 1 damaged hand mirror, 1 examination shard that showed impossible corridors. My room no longer looked like a poor student's room. It looked like a glass shop had lost a fight. Elia helped me wrap each mirror in cloth. We ate dinner on the floor because the desk was covered. Tovin's wife had packed us meat pies as a thank you for the sudden business. The crust was crisp and buttery. Inside was minced beef, onion, black pepper, and thick gravy. Elia had also bought roasted potatoes and a jar of pickled carrots. For 10 quiet minutes there was no ranking board, no examiner, and no second academy. Only warm food and the sound of rain against the bad window. Ilya leaned back against the bed. Tomorrow, Borin will prepare for the mirrors. Yes. He knows one mirror stores one spell. Yes. He knows you can carry many. Yes. What are you going to do? I picked up one reinforced mirror. Find the next rule. The examination shard under my mattress made a soft sound, not a crack, a tap. Ilya heard it too. We pulled the shard out. The ruined corridor was back. This time the figure stood close enough to see clearly. A boy in an ash-covered academy uniform pressed one hand against the other side of the glass. His mouth moved, no sound crossed. Then he lifted something toward us, a ranking badge. The number on it was 1. Behind him, red light filled the corridor. He turned. Something enormous moved past the broken windows. The shard went clear. The next morning, Borin's official notice appeared on every board in the first-year wing. My retest would not use fire. It would use stone. Stone was the correct answer to my ability. I hated that Borin had found it. A mirror could reflect magic. A mirror could store reflected magic. A mirror could not convince a brick to become a spell just because the brick was flying toward my head. At breakfast, the entire dining hall knew the retest condition. Caden pretended to throw a spoon at me until someone asked if he wanted to lose his second boot too. The laughter turned on him so fast that even he understood the lesson. Ilya had saved me fried eggs, thick bread, grilled sausage, and dark-edged tomatoes. Eat first, she said. Count mirrors after. For once, I obeyed. Borin's test began at noon, but the rules were posted at 8. I read them 3 times. The test had 3 stages. First, cross a 30-step lane while mechanical launchers fired stones. Second, defend a target dummy against 5 magical attacks, each worth 4 units of mana. Third, strike a moving target with at least 3 of those attacks. The Academy called it a complete evaluation of defensive and offensive mirror use. The first stage was the trap. It had nothing to do with magical aptitude. If I broke enough mirrors before reaching the second stage, I would have fewer storage slots. If I protected the mirrors instead of myself, the stones would hit me. If I carried them in a case, I would lose time setting them up. Borin had designed the test so my physical weakness would consume my magical strength. That was fair tactics. It was not fair examination. The difference would matter later. For now, I needed to win. I went to the training hall and spent 12 silver coins. That bought 24 casts of spark from a practice crystal. 1 cast cost half a silver. I loaded 12 cheap mirrors with 1 spark each. Then I loaded both reinforced mirrors with stronger 4-unit force bolts from another crystal. Those 2 casts cost 4 silver total. 16 silver spent before noon. My purse fell to 9 silver. Ilya watched me pack the mirrors. You are spending almost everything. The scholarship is worth 120 silver. If you win. If I lose, 9 silver will not fix the problem. She nodded slowly. That was why I trusted her. She did not tell me to be careful after I had already calculated the risk. She asked if the calculation was complete. Why sparks? She asked. 1 unit is enough to do work. Not enough to stop a stone. No. Then what work? I tied the final mirror into a leather sling. I am still deciding. The answer came by accident. 1 loaded mirror slipped from the table. I reached for it and missed. The mirror landed face up on the floor 3 steps away. I felt the stored spark. That was new. Until then, I had always been holding a mirror when I released its imprint. The system had never told me touch was required. I stared at the glass on the floor. Ilya noticed. What? Move back. She did. I focused on the mirror. Release. The spark jumped upward from the glass and struck the underside of the table. Ilya looked at the mirror, then at my empty hands. You did not touch it. No. How far? We tested it. At 1 step, release worked. At 3 steps, release worked. At 5, it worked. At 8, the imprint felt faint but answered. At 10, nothing. We moved the mirror closer. At 9 steps, I could release it again with effort. The limit was not exact because my steps were not exact, but 9 was safe. That changed the whole test. A loaded mirror did not have to stay on my body. It could become a trap, or a tool, or, if I was very cheap, a 1-unit magical hammer. Aaliyah folded her arms. Boren is going to hate today. I hope he enjoys the educational value. By noon, the central practice arena held more than 400 people. First years filled the lower seats. Second years leaned over the upper rail. Several instructors stood beside the official scoring table. Naira had come. Tovan had somehow come too. He was selling small hand mirrors outside the arena for 2 silver each. Yesterday they had cost 1. He saw me looking and raised both hands. I warned you. Business had no loyalty. I respected that too. Boren stood in the center of the arena wearing his formal examiner coat. Behind him waited the stone lane. 6 wooden machines lined the sides. Each held a basket of fist-sized rocks. At the far end stood 5 magic pylons and 1 straw training dummy. The public ranking board glowed above the arena gate. My current position was 237. Boren spoke loudly enough for the stands. This retest was requested to resolve questions concerning the original F evaluation. The conditions are standardized for mixed defensive artifacts. That sentence was polished. It had probably taken him all morning. One instructor beside him looked uncomfortable. Good. Witnesses did not need to support me at the start. They only needed to remember what they saw. Boren looked at my wooden case. You may begin. The first launcher fired. I ran. A stone crossed my chest. Another struck beside my foot. A third clipped my shoulder and made the scoring crystal flash. I had no enhanced body, no physical shield. If a rock hit a mirror, the mirror still broke. So I stopped trying to defend the glass. At step 6, I dropped a loaded spark mirror near one launcher. At step 10, I dropped another near the opposite machine. When both launchers prepared to fire, I released the sparks remotely. The first spark struck a release lever. One machine fired early and smashed the ammunition basket of another. The second spark hit a wheel lock. That launcher tilted, fired high, and broke the arm of the machine beside it. The stands went silent for 1 heartbeat. Then everyone started shouting. Boren stepped forward. You are attacking the test equipment. The rules forbid attacking the examiner, I said while running, not the equipment. 3 instructors looked at the posted rules. Nobody stopped me. At step 20, a stone hit my wooden case and I heard glass break. At step 24, I used 1 last spark to knock a loose stone beneath a launcher wheel. The machine leaned sideways and fired into the barrier. I crossed the 30-step line with 3 physical hits, 4 cheap mirrors broken, and half the stone machines disabled by their own ammunition. Stage 1 complete, the senior instructor announced. The crowd cheered. Boren did not. Stage 2 began immediately. 5 magic pylons surrounded the straw dummy. Each would fire 1 4-unit spell. My task was to prevent all 5 from damaging the dummy. I opened the case. 4 mirrors were broken. 8 loaded cheap mirrors remained. 2 reinforced mirrors remained. The pylon sequence started. First attack, flame bolt. I caught it with a cheap mirror. 4 units stored. The glass developed a thin crack. Second attack, ice spear. Another mirror. 4 units stored. Third, force bolt. Stored. Fourth, arc flash. Stored. Fifth, another flame bolt. Stored. 5 mirrors now held 20 units of enemy magic in total. My personal mana spent, 0. The crowd counted aloud after the third catch. 4 units, 8, 12, 16, 20. That sound changed something inside me. Yesterday, my ability had been a rumor. Today, 400 people understood the arithmetic. Boren understood it too. His face had gone pale. Stage 3 should have been simple. A metal target moved along a rail 20 steps away. I had to hit it 3 times with stored attacks. Boren had placed barriers between us. The target appeared for only 1 second at 3 separate openings. A normal caster could aim directly. My mirrors needed line of sight at the moment of release. At least that was what Boren expected. I placed 1 loaded mirror face up behind the first barrier, then another beside the second, then another near the third. Boren watched me. You must remain behind the start line. I know. You cannot retrieve those once the target begins. I know. The target started moving. It passed the first opening. I released the mirror beside it. The flame bolt fired sideways, hit. The scoring crystal flashed, the target accelerated. Second opening. I released the ice spear from a mirror lying 6 steps away from me and 3 steps from the rail. Hit. The arena erupted again. Boren turned toward the scoring table. That is remote casting. No, I said. The mirror is releasing a stored imprint. The instructor checked the test crystal. No new mana expenditure detected from the candidate. That sentence destroyed Boren's objection. Third opening. The target moved faster now. I released the force bolt. The mirror was angled badly. The spell missed. The crowd gasped. Boren straightened. I still had 2 loaded attack mirrors in my hand. The target was disappearing behind the final barrier. I could not hit it directly, so I aimed at one of the reinforced mirrors I had placed earlier near the rail. I released Arc Flash. The spell struck the reinforced mirror. It reflected. The reinforced mirror was already loaded with a 4-unit force bolt from the training hall, so it could not store Arc Flash, but storage was not required for reflection. Arc Flash changed direction and hit the moving target from behind the barrier. Third hit. For half a second, the arena was silent. Then 400 people stood up. The sound hit harder than Caden's fireball. The scoring crystal declared the retest complete. Boren did not move. The senior instructor beside him took the examination report from the table. He read the original comments aloud. Physical endurance, 0. Combat value, negligible. Scholarship recommendation, denied. Then he looked at the broken launchers, 5 defended magical attacks, and 3 target hits. Combat value is clearly not negligible. Laughter rolled through the stands. Boren's ears turned red. The instructor continued. The original F grade is overturned. The ranking board changed. My academy aptitude grade rose from F to A. My public position moved from 237 to 194. 43 places. The scholarship office restored 120 silver coins for the first month. My housing fee was refunded for 30 days. The crowd reacted to every number. A grade jump from F to A was rare. A scholarship restoration was visible proof that the academy had reversed itself, and Boren had to stand in front of everyone while the clerk changed the record he had signed. Caden tried to leave before the ceremony ended. Nira caught his sleeve and pointed toward the arena. He stayed. I almost respected her too much. Boren finally faced me. You still took 3 physical hits. Yes. A true combat artifact would have prevented them. Then it is good that the grade says magical aptitude, not invulnerability. The front rows laughed. Boren opened his mouth. The senior instructor stopped him. That is enough. It was not a dramatic punishment. Boren was not expelled. He was not dragged away. That would have been foolish. He had made a bad judgment and then tried to defend it with a biased test. The academy removed him from first-year artifact evaluations pending review. For a man who cared deeply about his examination record, that was worse than being shouted at. He had wanted my first victory to look like luck. Instead, 400 witnesses watched his own retest turn my F into an A. By afternoon, the notice board had a new drawing. Boren was throwing a rock at a mirror. The mirror was holding a scholarship certificate. Someone had written one word under it. Missed. I did not know who drew it. I hoped they had a successful career. The money arrived before dinner. 120 silver coins. I counted them twice. Then I paid Toven 30 silver for better materials. He sold me 6 reinforced mirrors at 5 silver each because I bought in bulk and because, as he said, students had now purchased every cheap mirror in his shop. I also paid 10 silver for a small toolkit, leather backing and polishing cloth. 40 silver spent. 80 remained from the scholarship, plus the 9 I already had. My strength had changed again. I now owned 6 reinforced mirrors, 8 usable cheap plates, 1 damaged hand mirror, and the examination shard. My safe-stored power was still 4 units per mirror for most glass, but the reinforced plates survived 4-unit attacks with almost no cracking. The system also acknowledged the A-grade retest as a class milestone, My personal storage tolerance rose from 4 units to 6. Not every mirror could survive 6. That distinction was important. My class could hold more. My cheap glass could not. Power without equipment was still just an expensive way to make shards. That evening, the scholarship housing credit moved me into a slightly larger room with a window that actually closed. Elia helped carry the mirror case. We bought an iron pan, 2 clean bowls, rice, eggs, onions, mushrooms, and a thick piece of beef. I cooked. The onions hissed first, then the mushrooms and peppered beef. I stirred in rice and 2 eggs until the room smelled of hot fat and toasted grain. We ate beside the open tool case while rain ran down the window. For once, the mirrors around us were only mirrors. Elia tapped her spoon against the bowl. You are rank 194. Yes. 3 days ago, you were 298. Yes. You gained 104 places. Yes. You could sound slightly happy. I bought a pan. She stared at me. I am very happy. She laughed into her rice. After dinner, we tested remote release again. With my higher class tolerance, the connection felt clearer. 9 steps remained safe. At 10, control failed. So I wrote the rule in my notebook. 1 mirror, 1 imprint. Current class tolerance, 6 units. Remote release, reliable within 9 steps. Physical durability depends on glass. The numbers were simple. Simple rules were useful because enemies could understand them too. That forced me to think 1 step beyond the rule instead of hiding behind mystery. At sunset, someone knocked on the door. It was Naira. She held a sealed envelope. This was delivered to the combat office. Your old examiner refused to bring it. Thank you. She looked past me at the mirrors covering half the room. You really do live like this? Yes. That explains nothing. She left. The seal on the envelope belonged to the Academy administration, not the first-year office, not the combat department, the central administration. Inside was a short order. All recordings of my entrance examination, both public duels and the official retest, were to be copied and sent to the Capitol Review Office. A name was written at the bottom. Rusk. I had never met him. Elia read the order over my shoulder. Is that bad? I became interesting. That is usually bad. A second knock came before I could answer. This time, an Academy messenger stood outside. He carried a black wooden box. Inside the box was a mirror fragment. It was not mine. The silver backing was burned away. The glass showed the ruined corridor immediately. The ash-covered student on the other side was waiting. He pressed both hands against the surface. Behind him, the enormous red shape moved closer. Then words appeared in the dust on his side of the glass. 3 simple words. Do not connect. The message said, not to connect. So naturally, the Academy scheduled me for a tournament designed around connecting attacks to targets. I did not laugh when I read the bracket the next morning. Elia did. The Royal Academy first-year crown began on the 4th day after my entrance exam. Every new student could enter. The tournament affected ranking, scholarship bonuses, and access to advanced training halls. I had planned to watch it from the stands before Boren broke my mirror. Now my name was on the main bracket. Rank 194. First round victory, 30 silver coins. Second round victory, 50. Quarterfinal victory, 70. Semifinal victory, 100. Champion reward, 300 silver coins and a private training permit. Money had become a very clear language. I understood every word. The black box with the strange mirror fragment sat locked under my bed. I had tried nothing with it after the warning. That did not mean I ignored it. I measured it. The fragment was thicker than Academy glass. Its silver backing had been burned from the inside, not scraped from the outside. When it showed the ruined corridor, I felt no stored spell inside it. Whatever the second Academy was, it was not simply another magical imprint. That was a future problem. The tournament was today's problem. A knock came while I was packing mirrors. The man outside introduced himself as Halden from the Academy Disciplinary Office. He was middle-aged, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark gray coat with no decorative medals. He did not look angry. That made me listen more carefully. Riven? Yes. I need the fragment delivered to you last night. Why? Because it belongs to the Academy. Who sent it? He paused. We are investigating that. That answer was probably true and completely useless. Elia stood behind me with her arms folded. Halden saw her, then looked back at me. You are not accused of anything. The object is restricted material. Restricted before or after it arrived in my room. His mouth tightened slightly. Before. That was interesting. I gave him the black box. There was no reason to start a war with Academy security over a piece of glass I did not understand. Halden checked the seal. Do not attempt to reproduce the image you saw. I did not tell you what I saw. He became still. Elia's expression changed too. For 1 second, the hallway was silent. Then Halden said, The Capitol Review Office sent instructions this morning. Your tournament participation remains approved. Use standard Academy mirrors only. Whose instructions? Rusk. The same name from yesterday's letter. Halden left with the box. Elia closed the door. He knew. Yes. About the corridor. Yes. And told you not to reproduce it. Yes. What are you going to do? I lifted my tournament case. Win enough money to afford better glass. She stared at me. That was not the question. It is the answer for today. The tournament grounds occupied the Academy's largest courtyard. 8 rings operated at once during the early rounds. Ranking boards hung above each gate. Food stalls lined the outer wall. Students shouted for friends, rivals, and anyone likely to get thrown into something funny. Tovan had rented a stall. He was selling small mirrors with wooden handles. A painted sign called them Riven Specials. They are normal mirrors, I said. That is why the sign does not say magical. How much? 3 silver. You sold them to me for 1. You made them famous. Elia bought one. I looked at her. For historical value, she said. Tovan bowed to her like she had funded his retirement. My first opponent used a spear and almost no ranged magic. He had watched my stone retest and assumed that meant mirrors were useless against physical attacks. They were. Stored magic was not. I entered with 2 reinforced mirrors already holding 6-unit force bolts. Preparation cost me 8 silver. He rushed me. I dropped 1 loaded mirror behind a barrier marker and let him chase. When he passed within 9 steps of it, I released the force bolt into the ground beside his rear foot. He stumbled. I stepped inside the spear's reach and touched my practice knife to his chest guard. Match over in 11 seconds. The crowd laughed when he looked back at the mirror he had ignored. He laughed too. My ranking rose from 194 to 178. 30 silver reward, 8 spent. Net gain, 22. Second round was harder. My opponent had watched the first. She refused to chase me. Instead, she filled the ring with a wide sheet of cold mist. The spell cost 8 units of mana, too much for 1 mirror. The mist moved slowly but covered almost the entire arena. If it touched me, the barrier would count continuous damage. The audience became quiet. This was the first obvious answer to my new style. Do not throw a compact spell at the mirror. Fill the space around the mirror. I held up 1 reinforced plate. The mist touched it. The glass whitened. Nothing stored. Too much mana. A crack appeared. The crowd reacted. My opponent smiled. Then I placed a second mirror beside the first, and a third. The 3 surfaces formed a shallow wall. The mist struck all 3 at once. Each mirror reflected only the portion touching its surface. The spell did not vanish as one object because it was not one compact object. It was a field spread across space. The system reacted separately to each complete reflected section. 2 units stored in the first mirror, 3 in the second, 2 in the third. 1 unit of mist still slipped around the edges and reached me. The barrier marked a light hit, but 7 of the 8 units had been caught as 3 separate imprints. That was the next rule. A large distributed spell could be divided by distributed surfaces, not duplicated. Divided. The total stored power never exceeded what had struck the mirrors, but 1 spell no longer meant 1 mirror. The audience understood when I released the 3 cold imprints from 3 different directions. Mist closed around my opponent from her left, right, and behind. She tried to retreat and stepped directly onto the one clear path I had left. A loaded spark mirror waited there. I released it into the scoring plate at her ankle. The barrier declared a ring control victory. Students shouted so loudly that the next arena paused. My ranking rose to 146, 50 silver reward, 1 reinforced mirror badly cracked, repair and replacement estimate, 7 silver, net gain, 43. More important, hundreds of witnesses had seen the new arithmetic. One 8-unit field spell had become 3 stored fragments totaling 7 units. By lunch, copies of the match description were pinned to every tournament board. People stopped calling my equipment the window shield. Now they called it the mirror net. That name was slightly less terrible. I ate with Elia and Naira behind the west stands. We bought hot flatbread stuffed with grilled lamb, onion, tomato, and garlic sauce, plus salted fried potatoes. Elia inspected my cracked mirror. "You earned 80 silver this morning." "Yes." "And you are about to spend it." "Yes." Naira stole 2 potatoes. He looks at money the way normal people look at ammunition. "It is ammunition," I said. I proved her right 10 minutes later. Tovan sold me 10 reinforced plates, plus frames, straps, and folding stands. Total spent, 80 silver. My morning winnings vanished, but I now had 16 reinforced mirrors and several cheap plates, more storage slots, more angles, more things to break. The quarterfinal began at 3. My opponent used a physical chain and earth magic together. He never aimed magic at me. He raised stone ridges to trap my movement, then swung the chain through the gaps. The first strike smashed a mirror on my arm. The second tore away a folding stand. 12 silver of equipment disappeared in less than a minute. "You cannot reflect the floor," he said. "No, but you made the floor." While he raised the ridges, 3 mirrors had caught reflected fragments of the earth spell. I released the first at the base of the ridge beside him. Stone surged up and trapped his chain. The second raised a small ridge under his left foot. He stepped right. A loaded force bolt mirror was already there. I released it. He crossed the boundary line in the air. Ring out. 70 silver reward. My ranking rose from 146 to 117. Equipment loss, 19 silver. Net gain, 51. The useful rule was simple. Magic did not need to be aimed at me. If it touched a mirror and fully reflected, it could leave an imprint. The semifinal bracket updated. Naira had lost on the opposite side. The favorite remained. Saris, rank 12, highest first-year combat score. He was tall, calm, and famous enough that students asked him to sign tournament programs. His magic specialized in compressed light. His signature attack was called Solar Lance, 24 units of mana, 4 times my personal mirror tolerance. The stands filled before our semi-final. Saris met me in the center of the ring. He did not insult the mirrors. He looked at them carefully. "You divided the mist spell." "Yes. You need multiple surfaces because each surface can only hold what it reflects safely." "Yes. And your reinforced plates seem stable at 6 units. I did not answer that one. He smiled. Good. He had done his homework. The match started. Saris did not use Solar Lance. He used dozens of tiny light needles from different angles. Each was weak enough for my mirrors, but there were too many for my body to track. 3 hit my coat in the first exchange. I answered with stored cold mist from the earlier round. Fog filled the center of the ring, and every light needle became a bright line inside it. Now I could see the paths. I reflected 2, dodged 3, and let another strike empty ground. Saris changed tactics and fired a broad 12-unit light wave. 4 mirrors waited on stands. The wave hit all 4. 3 units stored in the first, 3 in the second, 3 in the third, 2 in the fourth. 1 unit slipped through and struck my shoulder. The crowd counted the captured power aloud. 3, 6, 9, 11. Saris heard them. I released the 4 fragments toward 4 mirrors placed around the ring. The beams reflected again and crossed in front of him, forcing him backward. A stored wind cut struck the floor behind him. He jumped. While he was in the air, I released a force bolt beneath him. He landed with half one boot outside the boundary. The barrier sounded. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, the arena exploded. My ranking jumped from 117 to 68, 100 silver reward, 2 mirrors lost, net gain 88. Saris looked at the line under his boot, then at me. You never aimed for my barrier. No. You aimed for my feet. Yes. Nira shouted from the stands that she had warned him. The crowd laughed. Saris did too, then offered his hand. The tournament official interrupted us with a bracket correction. The top 16 entrance seeds had a recovery slot. Saris had lost the semifinal, but not the championship path. He would face me again at sunset for the crown. This time his smile was different. I know how to beat the net, he said. Solar Lance is 24 units compressed into a point smaller than your palm. One mirror cannot hold it. The first mirror it hits will break before a second can help. He was right. A wide field could be divided across surfaces. A compressed attack could not. By 5, the tournament board listed Saris as the clear favorite. Someone had written beside my name, mirror count unknown. I returned to my room with Elia for 1 hour before the final. We ate quickly. Fresh bread, soft cheese, smoked chicken, apples cut into thin slices. Honey poured over the cheese because Elia insisted I needed sugar and because arguing would waste time. I laid 16 reinforced mirrors across the floor. 2 were damaged, 14 remained reliable. My purse held 177 silver after prizes and losses. I could buy more glass. I could not buy enough time to test it. Elia sat beside the mirrors. Can you divide Solar Lance after it hits? No. First surface breaks. Can you make it wider before it hits? No. Can you avoid it? Probably not if Saris waits until I am cornered. She picked up one mirror and turned it toward another. My reflection appeared inside my reflection. Then again. Then again. A tunnel of ribbons disappeared into the glass. Elia frowned. What happens if one mirror reflects magic into another mirror? I looked at her. We had done it during the semi-final with released fragments, but only as a change of direction. We had never tried it with an empty receiving mirror and a spell too strong for one surface. I loaded a reinforced plate with a 6-unit force bolt. Then I placed 3 empty mirrors in a narrow angled line. I released the bolt into the first. It reflected into the second. The first mirror could not store anything because it was the source. The second reflected the bolt into the third. The second stored 6 units, but the spell itself continued after reflection. The third also reflected it. The third tried to store the same 6-unit shape. For one terrible second, I thought I had discovered duplication. Then the system corrected me. The second mirror's imprint faded when the third completed storage. The attack could move through a chain. The imprint moved with the last complete capture. No duplication, no free power. But the chain changed something else. Every reflection changed direction without asking the first surface to absorb the full force for long. A mirror only needed to survive the instant of complete reflection. I looked at the 14 plates on the floor, then at Elia. A cage, she said. Yes. How many reflections? As many as the glass survives. And if it does not, then I buy a new face. That joke was bad. I am under pressure. We carried every reliable mirror to the arena. At sunset, more than 1,000 students and staff surrounded the championship court. The ranking board showed Saris at 12. It showed me at 68. The champion reward glowed beneath both names, 300 silver, the private training permit, and an automatic ranking review for the top 30. Saris entered to cheers. I entered carrying a wooden frame, a leather case, and 14 mirrors. The crowd counted them aloud, 1 through 14. Saris watched me place them around the ring, not in a wall, in a rough circle, each face angled toward the next. His expression changed. You are not blocking the lance. No. What are you doing? I set the last mirror in place, giving it somewhere to go. The championship bell rang. At the same moment, every protective mirror in the arena flashed black. For less than a second, the ruined academy appeared in all of them. 1,000 witnesses saw it. Then the image vanished, and somewhere beneath the arena, an alarm began to ring. The alarm did not stop. Every mirror around the championship court had shown the ruined academy at the same time. Not only mine, The barrier mirrors, the judges' mirrors, even the small souvenir mirrors students had bought from Tovan. More than 1,000 people had seen it. That was good for me. It was very bad for whoever wanted the image hidden. Gray-coated staff entered through 4 gates. Halden was with them, and beside him walked a lean man in a black coat with the silver seal of the capital. Rusk. He looked at my mirrors. End the match. The tournament judge checked the barrier crystal. All defensive functions are normal. End it anyway. The crowd objected loudly. Saris looked from Rusk to the judge. Why? An unauthorized visual phenomenon contaminated the array, Rusk said. Then explain the risk. Rusk did not. That silence hurt him more than an argument. The instructors at the scoring table checked the barrier again and found no failure. Elia pointed at the tournament clock, which was still running. Saris raised his voice. I request the match continue under the posted rules. The stands roared. The judge nodded. The championship continues. The barrier will be monitored. Rusk's face stayed calm. Halden looked away, hiding what might have been a smile. The bell rang again. Saris attacked immediately. Light needles came from several angles, too many for one shield of glass. 2 reflected, 1 hit my sleeve, another cracked a reinforced plate, then a 12-unit light wave swept across the ring. 3 mirrors divided most of it into smaller stored fragments, but the rest struck my shoulder. I released the captured light at the ground around Saris. He dodged all of it. He had learned from the semi-final. Good. He kept using small attacks, forcing me backward while avoiding the large spells I could turn against him. 1 cheap mirror broke, then another reinforced plate cracked. My money was becoming entertainment. At the edge of the ring, Saris stopped. He had cornered me. Solar lance formed between his hands, 24 units of mana compressed into a line thinner than my wrist. 1 mirror could not store it. A direct hit would shatter the first plate before I could use a second. Ready? Saris asked. No. He fired anyway. I released a 1-unit spark into the leg of the nearest folding stand. The stand twisted. Its mirror caught Solar Lance at a shallow angle instead of head-on. The glass screamed, but reflected the spell. The lance struck the second mirror, then the third. White light began running around the cage. Each plate took only the instant of reflection, not a direct block. At the 5th mirror, the angle slipped. I released a stored force bolt into the 6th stand and rotated it just enough. The lance stayed inside the chain. 6th reflection. 7th. 8th. The crowd had stopped breathing. The 9th mirror sent the attack behind Saris. The 10th crossed the arena. The 11th shattered only after completing its reflection. The 12th sent Solar Lance back toward its caster. Saris raised a shield. I changed the final angle with 1 last spark. His own attack struck the floor in front of him. The explosion threw him beyond the championship line. The barrier flashed gold. Champion, Riven. The stands erupted. Saris raised his light shield. I changed the final angle with another spark. Solar Lance struck the ground in front of him. I did not aim it at his body. The explosion tore a long glowing line across the stone and threw him backward. He landed beyond the championship boundary. The barrier flashed gold. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then the ranking board declared the result. Champion, Riven. The sound that followed felt physical. Students screamed. People stamped their feet. Tovan climbed onto his own stall and waved a mirror over his head like a flag. Naira was laughing so hard she had to hold the rail. Elia simply looked at me and raised 1 thumb. That mattered more than the rest. Saris sat outside the boundary, staring at the glowing trench left by his own spell. Then he laughed. You made my best attack run around the arena. Yes. Like a dog chasing its tail. That is less elegant than my explanation. It is more accurate. He stood and offered his hand. I pulled him up. The tournament judge announced the numbers. 300 silver coins for the championship. Private training access for 1 month. Automatic ranking review. My position changed from 68 to 29. From 298 to 29 in 4 days. The audience reacted to that number almost as loudly as the victory. My equipment calculation was less beautiful. 7 reinforced mirrors destroyed. 3 damaged. Estimated loss, 54 silver. Champion reward after equipment loss, 246 silver. Total cash in my possession after the tournament, 423 silver. 4 days earlier, I had owned 12. My strength had grown from one cracked shard holding 4 units to a network of mirrors I could trigger within 9 steps, each supporting a class tolerance of 6 units. My status had grown from F to A and from almost last place to the top 30. The arithmetic was excellent. Then every mirror in the arena turned black. The cheering died. The ruined academy returned. This time it did not flash for 1 second. It stayed. The protective dome above us became a giant curved mirror. Instead of the evening sky, it showed broken towers under a red sun. The same courtyard existed on the other side. Its stones were cracked. Its stands were burned. Dozens of students in torn academy uniforms filled that ruined arena. They were alive. They saw us. 1,000 people on our side saw them see us. The ash-covered student from the shard pushed through the crowd on the other side. He was the one with the rank 1 badge. He pressed both hands against the inside of the mirrored dome. His mouth moved. No sound crossed. Rusk shouted, "Shut down the barrier!" Nobody moved fast enough. Too many people were staring upward. The student on the other side dragged one finger through dust on the glass. Words appeared across the dome. "You connected it." A murmur moved through our stands. Rusk turned toward the barrier engineers. "Cut power now." I looked at him. "You called it an unauthorized visual phenomenon." "It is. There are people inside it. Images." The word came too quickly. Saris heard it. So did the judges. So did the first rows. I raised my voice. "Then let us test the image." Rusk stepped toward me. No. That was his mistake. Before that moment, some people still thought he might know more than us for a good reason. After that word, everyone wanted the test. Elia understood first. She held up the cheap souvenir mirror she had bought from Tovan. I loaded it with a 1-unit spark reflected from one of my surviving plates, then placed it on the arena floor. I pointed from the mirror to the student on the other side and raised one finger. He disappeared, then returned carrying a cracked mirror of his own. Rusk moved forward. Halden blocked him. "Not yet. That is an order." "Then give it in writing." The crowd heard every word. I released the spark upward into the mirrored dome. The ruined image rippled. My mirror became empty. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the other student's mirror flashed. A white spark came back through the dome and struck one of my empty reinforced plates. The system registered 1 unit with an unknown caster signature. I released it into the championship scoring crystal. The senior judge read the result aloud. "Unknown caster signature." That ended the argument. A recording could show ruined towers. An illusion could show moving students. Neither should send a new magical signature back through the glass. Rusk's expression changed just enough to tell us he had expected this. He tried one last explanation. Student Riven created an unstable cross array with unauthorized mirror chaining. I pointed toward the stands. Those mirrors showed the academy before my final attack. Dozens of students lifted ordinary hand mirrors. "Mine did!" someone shouted. Then another. Then 20 more. Tovan stood on his stall and raised both arms. "I made those. They are extremely normal." Even Halden laughed. Rusk did not. The ruined student on the dome started writing again. The letters were huge. "We are Royal Academy." Then another line. 1 year after the closure, my skin went cold. Elia stepped beside me. "After what closure?" The student wrote faster. "They sealed the mirror hall." Rusk looked toward the barrier controls. This time he did not ask. He moved. Halden caught his arm. 2 gray-coated staff hesitated, then stood with Halden instead of Rusk. The capital official's authority was still real, but public certainty had cracked. I knew something about cracks. Sometimes they were the beginning of usefulness. A shadow crossed the ruined red sky. The students on the other side panicked. The enormous thing from the corridor rose beyond the broken wall. It looked like red glass joined by black limbs, with hundreds of reflective surfaces where a face should have been. The rank 1 student wrote one final warning across the dome. It follows connections. Now I understood his first message. The connection was not only a window, it was a road. The creature turned toward us. Every mirror in our arena trembled. The system measured the pressure against the dome and gave me nothing useful except the truth. Far beyond 6 units. Far beyond 24. I could not store it. I could not fight it. Not yet. Break the connection, I said. Rusk snapped. I have been ordering that for 2 minutes. No, you were trying to hide it. A few students laughed even then. Rusk looked ready to outlaw humor. The large image had appeared only when hundreds of reflections synchronized. I did not need to smash every mirror. I needed to break the alignment. I looked at Cirrus. 6 units. He formed a 6-unit light bolt and fired it at my surviving plate. I stored it, then released it into the support of the largest tournament mirror. The support burst. The mirror fell and shattered. The ruined academy flickered. The red creature lunged, then the whole image collapsed into darkness. Normal evening sky returned above us. Halden turned to Rusk. I am sealing every arena record under Academy authority. Rusk looked around at more than 1,000 witnesses and understood the problem. He could pressure one examiner. He could edit one report. He could not make this many people forget what they had seen. He left without another word. By night, the championship results still stood. The Academy deposited 300 silver into my account before any capital order could freeze it. Halden personally handed me the private training permit. My rank remained 29. He also gave me a written notice stating that the accusation of creating unauthorized images was under investigation and that no disciplinary penalty had been imposed. It was not victory over the institution. It was breathing room. I preferred useful things to dramatic things. Aaliyah found me later in my room. I had 7 broken mirrors on the floor, 3 damaged ones on the desk, and enough silver to replace all of them several times. She carried a pot from the dormitory kitchen. What is that? Food. I can see that. Then your A grade was deserved. She poured thick chicken soup into our bowls. There were potatoes, carrots, onions, soft pieces of chicken, and small dumplings that had absorbed the broth. She had also brought warm bread with butter melting into the center. For several minutes, we ate without discussing another world. The soup was hot. The room was warm. My new window closed properly. That was enough to make the day feel survivable. Aaliyah tore the bread in half and pushed the larger piece toward me. I pushed it back. She pushed it toward me again. We repeated this until the bread nearly fell into the tool case. You won 300 silver, she said. Buy your own bread. I did. You brought this one. That makes it mine. Then why are you giving it to me? She thought about that, frowned, and ate the larger half herself. I counted the broken plates while she did. 7 destroyed, 3 damaged. Replacing all 10 with reinforced glass would cost about 60 silver at Tovan's old price, and probably 90 at the price he would invent tomorrow. Even after that, I would still have enough money for food, rent, and a larger workbench. 4 days earlier, I had been choosing between dinner and 2 mirrors. The difference felt more real than the ranking board. Then Elia reached into her pocket. She placed her 3 silver souvenir mirror on the table. A thin crack ran through it. I did not drop it, she said. I stopped eating. The crack had appeared after the connection closed. I picked up the mirror. At first, it showed only my face. Then the reflection darkened. The ruined rank 1 student appeared again. Only him this time. No corridor, no red sky, no giant creature. He looked exhausted. He raised one hand and wrote on his side of the glass. You close the large gate. A second line appeared. Small ones remain. Elia moved closer. The student wrote one more sentence. Find the mirror hall before Rusk does. The image vanished. I looked at the cracked souvenir mirror. 4 days ago, Boren had broken my palm-sized mirror with a stone and given me an F. Now I was ranked 29, held more than 400 silver, owned a private training permit, and had proof that another Royal Academy was alive behind the glass. My ability had not become complicated. The rule was still the same. If magic fully reflected from my mirror, the mirror remembered it once. The dangerous part was everything a simple rule could touch. I put down my spoon. Elia looked at me. You are thinking about buying mirrors. Yes. How many? I counted the silver in my purse. Then I looked at the cracked glass between us. All of them.